Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Roxana Aquino, and I will be your teacher today discussing Module 1 in Quarter 1, Respiratory System Working with Other Organ System. Your body is a fascinating creation that can carry out incredible tasks and activities. It is like a machine that is able to function with proper organization of parts and systems. However, our bodies also require proper care and maintenance. It is just fitting to keep going with a healthy lifestyle to ensure that each part is maintained appropriately while getting the most of it. Respiratory system is made up of organs in the body that help us to breathe. Just remember that respiration is linked to breathing. Getting to know the respiratory system helps us to understand our body better. Read on and perform the activities prepared for you in this module. At the end of this module, you should be able to define respiration operationally, differentiate the internal and external respiration, identify the parts of respiratory system, and explain the function of the different organs. Let's start with activity 1. 4 picks one word. So you are going to use the 4 pictures and you're going to guess the word being described by it. Kindly type in your answer and send it in Messenger. Keep this in mind. Animal cells generate ATP in aerobic respiration, which consumes oxygen gas and generated carbon dioxide as waste product. Respiration is the physical movement of air into and out of the body. Respiration is the act of exchanging gases. It's the movement of air or dissolved gases into and out of the lungs or movement of oxygen from the outside environment to the cells within tissues, and the transport of carbon dioxide in the opposite direction. Respiration has two types: external respiration and internal respiration. External respiration is the gas exchange between an organism's body and its environment. And internal respiration is gas exchange between tissue cells and the bloodstream. There are 3 main events in respiration, namely breathing, diffusion, and transport of gases. Breathing is the exchange of air between the atmosphere and the air sacs of the lungs. This is accomplished by inspiration or inhalation, through which oxygen passes into the cell's lining, the outside the lungs, and expiration or exhalation, through which carbon dioxide passes through the lungs into the environment. Next, diffusion. This is the transfer of oxygen gas and carbon dioxide across respiratory membranes. It involves the diffusion of oxygen gas from air sacs into the blood and release carbon dioxide out of the blood. Transport of gases, wherein oxygen is carried into the cells and carbon dioxide is delivered from the cells to the lungs for release. Let's go to activity 2, define me. Directions. Read the questions carefully and choose the letter of the correct answer. Then send your answer through Messenger. Question number 1. Which is the correct definition of respiration? Justify your answer. A. Respiration is the act of exchanging gases. B. Respiration is the act of using carbon dioxide and producing oxygen as a waste product. Question number 2. Internal respiration is A. The gas exchange between an organism's body and its environment. B. The gas exchange between tissue cells and bloodstream. Activity number 3. What a bunch of adgao. Directions. Kindly use the figure below to answer the questions and send your answer to Messenger. Question number 1. What does each part of the bunch of adgao model represent in relation to the breathing system? A. For the main stem. B. Branching, large stems. C. Little stems. D. Individual adgao. Kindly double-click the video in order for you to see other information. Question number 2. What will happen if one part of the system fails to carry out its function properly?
Done me and you bet I felt it. I tried to beat you, but you're so hot that I melted. I fell right through the cracks, and now I'm trying to get back.
Activity number 4, directions. Label the parts and answer the questions below, and kindly send your answer to Messenger. Label me. Question number 7. What is the body system represented in the picture? Number 8. How do you describe the pathway of oxygen in the breathing system? Keep this in mind. So the parts of the respiratory system that are in charge of supplying oxygen are the nose, nasal passageways, windpipe, lungs, and the diaphragm. In the nose and nasal passages, the entering air is made warm, damp, and clean of unknown particles. Next, the air moves down through the trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and alveoli. The trachea is the empty tube that serves as the passageway of air into the lungs. The bronchi are the two branching tubes that connect the trachea to the lungs, while the bronchioles are the hair-like tubes that connect to the alveoli, and alveoli are the air sacs that allow gas exchange in the lungs. Kindly click the GIF in order for you to visit a video wherein it can help you understand the lesson.
The respiratory system moves air through the nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, and bronchus to the alveoli where the gas exchange between oxygen and carbon dioxide occurs. Nares are the openings to the nose. The nasal cavity is lined with cilia, mucous membranes, and blood capillaries. The air is filtered by cilia, moistened by mucous membranes, and warmed by the blood. Air moves into the pharynx or throat, the common passageway for food and air. Air continues on to the larynx. The epiglottis, a flap of tissue in front of the larynx, closes off the larynx when swallowing to prevent food from entering. The larynx or voice box contains the vocal folds. The trachea or windpipe connects the larynx to the bronchial tree. The cartilage rings of the trachea prevent the trachea from collapsing. Lungs are spongy tissue with alveoli and blood capillaries. Breathing occurs because of the expansion and contraction of the lungs. The bronchi carrying the air subdivide into smaller branches called bronchioles. At the end of each bronchiole are the alveolar sacs. The alveolar sacs are surrounded by blood capillaries and contain millions of single-layer alveoli cells where the gas exchange takes place. Oxygenated air goes from the nose to the pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchus, and alveoli. By the process of diffusion, oxygen in the air moves from the alveoli to the capillaries. Carbon dioxide moves from the capillaries to the alveoli and is exhaled. This process is called respiration.
Keep this in mind, the breathing mechanism. When you breathe in or when you inhale, the diaphragm muscle contracts. Inhaling moves the diaphragm down and expands the chest cavity. Simultaneously, the ribs move up and increase the size of the chest cavity. There is now more space and less air pressure inside the lungs. Air pushes in from the outside where there is higher air pressure. It pushes into the lungs where there is a lower air pressure. When you breathe out or when you exhale, the diaphragm muscle relaxes. The diaphragm and ribs return to their original place. The chest cavity returns to its original size. There is now less space and greater air pressure inside the lungs. It pushes the air outside where there is lower pressure.
Many of us have hundreds of things on our minds at any moment, often struggling to keep track of everything we need to do. But fortunately, there's one important thing we don't have to worry about remembering: breathing. When you breathe, you transport oxygen to the body's cells to keep them working, and clear your system of the carbon dioxide that this work generates. Breathing, in other words, keeps the body alive. So how do we accomplish this crucial and complex task without even thinking about it? The answer lies in our body's respiratory system. Like any machinery, it consists of specialized components and requires a trigger to start functioning. Here, the components are the structures and tissues making up the lungs, as well as the various other respiratory organs connected to them. And to get this machine moving, we need the autonomic nervous system, our brain's unconscious control center for the vital functions. As the body prepares to take in oxygen-rich air, this system sends a signal to the muscles around your lungs, flattening the diaphragm and contracting the intercostal muscles between your ribs to create more space for the lungs to expand. Air then whooshes into your nose and mouth, through your trachea and into the bronchi that split at the trachea's base, with one entering each lung. Like tree branches, these small tubes divide into thousands of tinier passages, called bronchioles. It's tempting to think of the lungs as huge balloons, but instead of being hollow, they're actually spongy inside, with the bronchioles running throughout the parenchyma tissue. At the end of each bronchiole is a little air sac called an alveolus, wrapped in capillaries full of red blood cells containing special proteins called hemoglobin. The air you've breathed in fills these sacs, causing the lungs to inflate. Here is where the vital exchange occurs. At this point, the capillaries are packed with carbon dioxide, and the air sacs are full of oxygen. But due to the basic process of diffusion, the molecules of each gas want to move to a place where there is a lower concentration of their kind. So as oxygen crosses over to the capillaries, the hemoglobin grabs it up, while the carbon dioxide is unloaded into the lungs. The oxygen-rich hemoglobin is then transported throughout the body via the bloodstream. But what do our lungs do with all that carbon dioxide? Exhale it, of course. The autonomic nervous system kicks in again, causing the diaphragm to ball up and the intercostal muscles to relax, making the chest cavity smaller and forcing the lungs to compress. The carbon dioxide-rich air is expelled, and the cycle begins again. So that's how these spongy organs keep our bodies efficiently supplied with air. Lungs inhale and exhale between 15 and 25 times a minute, which amounts to an incredible 10,000 liters of air each day. That's a lot of work, but don't sweat it. Your lungs and your autonomic nervous system have got it covered.
Lastly, let's go to activity number 5, bottled balloons. You are to create your own bottled balloon or your lung model. You're just going to follow the steps given, and you're going to send a video on how you created it through Messenger. The objectives of this activity are to explain how the lungs work, to describe how the movement of the diaphragm helps the air go in and out of the lungs. Materials needed: 1 2-liter empty plastic bottle, 3 balloons, 1 big, then 2 smalls that are identical, 1 sturdy straw, a pair of scissors, and 5 rubber bands. Procedure: first, you are going to use a pair of scissors to cut the bottom out of the 2-liter plastic bottle. 2. Create 2 holes that are apart from each other in the cap of the plastic bottle, and make it sure that each hole is just big enough for a straw to fit through. Third, stick the 2 straws through the 2 holes of the bottle cup. Fourth, place 1 balloon on the end side of each straw and secure them with rubber bands as shown in the figure below. Fifth, stick the balloon ends of the straws through the bottle opening and screw the lid on tightly. Sixth, stretch out the larger balloon and place it over the open bottom of the bottle. Secure it with a rubber band as tightly as possible. Kindly refer to the diagram of lung model below. Write down your observations and kindly answer the guide questions. Question number 1. What does each part of the constructed lung model represent? 2. What happens as you pull down the balloon at the bottom of the model? Third, what happens as you push up the balloon? Fourth, how does the movement of the diaphragm cause the air to go in and out of the lungs? Fifth, what might happen if you break the balloon? Reflection time. Direction. Kindly send your insight to your teacher through private message by answering the following. What I have learned. And what I wish to ask my teacher to talk about. For your reference, kindly look at the word bank. There are terms that you need to look at in order for you to understand the different parts of the respiratory system and also the different functions. Okay, so let us assess what you have learned. So directions. Read the questions carefully and write the correct letter and send your answers via messenger. Module 1. See you again for the next module.